that, but now it is time for a chat with Pat.
Yes, and we are excited. It's Thursday, so it must be Joan Watson. She is an associate editor of the Integrated Catholic and lots of other things. I could go on and on, but just look her up on the Integrated Catholic. Joan, welcome. How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you, Pat?
I am fine. And again, I love your In Between the Sundays. It's great. And this past week, you wrote about Joan the Maid, Joan the Meek. Interesting. Did you just want to write an article about your patron saint?
I did, yeah. No. Well, it was her feast day. And she's not on the universal calendar, so sometimes she gets lost here in the United States. But I wanted to honor her on her feast day and kind of highlight something that maybe people wouldn't attribute to her, a virtue people might not attribute to her on face value.
Sure. So I got a quick question. So I'm always interested did your parents, I always wonder why parents give their names to their children that they do. So did they really give you that name because of her, or was there somebody in the family they loved that was Joan, or was it just they thought you looked like a Joan?
Well, we're one of those families that all have the same first letter. So we're one of those J families, so all my siblings are J's. I'm the youngest, and they really like the name Joan. So I think the saints so often pick us. You know, people will say, you can have a devotion to the saint, but often the saint finds you, and I do think Joan found me. I've actually kind of struggled understanding her through the years, and, what does it mean to have her as my patroness? And I've grown to really love her, but it's taken a while because she's kind of odd. Yeah.
Yes, she is. She is not what we would think of as a normal run-of-the-mill kind of saint. So, you and the virtue that you connect to her, which is very interesting because she certainly is known as this kind of warrior, right? She leads troops into battle to reclaim land, but you picked meekness. Explain to us how Joan of Arc is meek.
Yeah, so I think we really misunderstand the word meekness now. We think meekness is weakness. To be meek is to be kind of that, milquetoast, fuddy-duddy, I don't want to stand up for anything, right? And that's not it. Meekness is a virtue, and meekness is not weakness. Meekness is actually strength, because the word for meek, we get it from the Greek word, which meant an animal that was tamed. Think of a big ferocious beast, but that was tamed for work so that it could be, used on the farm. And so it's not the ferocious steed that's untamed, the wild stallion that's strong, his strength destroys, but the meek horse that's powerful and can work, that's the meek. So when in meekness is knowing how to control our emotions, and we see that so beautifully with Joan. People think she's this warrior that's rash and brash, and she absolutely wasn't. She was a warrior who knew how to control her emotions and how to use her gifts for the glory of the Lord. And so I think meekness is one of those virtues that we've lost in the world, and that's why I kind of wanted to highlight it with her.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We so often understand meekness as weakness, meek is and even humble, these are little wimpy kind of things, And you make a great, you quote Bishop Arthur Saratelli, meekness stands between becoming angry at the wrong things and not becoming angry at anything. I love that because...
Isn't that great?
Yeah, because, again, we tend to be an all or nothing. Well, we can't get angry at anything. We should never be angry. But there is a righteous anger. And Joan exemplified that, correct?
Yes. So I think we have those two extremes, right? Some people in the world are like, oh, you should never get angry. You should never be upset. And then other people are angry all the time, right? We even people at church who are just angry at everything. And you're like, take a chill pill, right? It's going to be okay. So I think Joan finds that medium, but she was angry at sin. She was very angry. I mean, there were soldiers who were kind of scared of her because she literally chased prostitutes out of the camp. I mean, that's what you need to do, right? She chased them away. She made everybody go to confession before battle. She was scared and she was mad at the right things. But then when it came to the battle, you know, she wasn't scared because she knew the Lord was with her. And you know, she didn't hate the English. She didn't even hate the Burgundians. She didn't hate the people who arrested her. She didn't hate the bishop who tried her. She wanted everybody to go to heaven. And so she has this beautiful balance of emotions where she's angry at the right things, but doesn't lose her mind at the wrong things.
You point that out so well, I think, in your article about, you know, that she wept for English soldiers that had died, and she wanted the Duke of Burgundy to exhibit forgiveness and spoke about that. Can you give us a little bit more insight into that?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it comes out really beautifully at her trial where, you know, she had every reason. I mean, she did defend herself, and I think we see this beautiful example of, you know, she was on trial unfairly, unjustly, and she defended herself while forgiving those who were hurting her. And I think so often, actually, the clip that came on right before I came on was Chris Stefanik at the commercial break talking about forgiving people. And I think that's a great example of meekness, where when we forgive somebody, we don't admit that what they did was right? When someone hurts us, and, you know, when the English were fighting against her, to weep for their souls doesn't mean that what they were doing was right. And as Christians, sometimes we have this like black or white, you know, if you've hurt me, then you can never be forgiven, and I have to, you know, put up this wall because what you did was wrong. And we can have the both and, right? Like, yes, what you did was wrong, but I can forgive you, and I can weep for your soul, and I can love you. That doesn't condone what you've done. And that's the example we see in Joan, is that, you know, at her trial, she loves the men that are trying her. She wants them to go to heaven, but she's not afraid to call them out and say, like, you're doing the work of the devil. And it's this beautiful balance that I think I strive for, and I fail a lot at.
Yeah, it's something we're all striving for, that's for sure. So, Joan, I want to kind of end with this last piece here. The one, and you say there's one statement made during her trial that is key to Joan. She was asked, why you rather than another? Can you give us her response and why that's so important to knowing her?
Yeah, she basically says, it's because she's the smallest and the weakest. And if God worked victory through a little girl, essentially a maid, we would know that it was the Lord's victory. And I think so often that's how the Lord works. I say in the article, you know, that's the story of Frodo in the ring. That's the story of Christ on the cross, right? That God uses the smallest and the weak, but he gives us those virtues like meekness to win the victory for him. And that's what Joan really has taught me, is to trust in the Lord, and he's going to pick you, not because you're the best, probably because you're the worst, and that you are going to show his victory through your witness.
Well, Joan, the Lord has certainly graced you, and he has chosen you, and he has graced you in so many ways. Thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Thanks, Pat. God bless.
Have a good weekend ahead.
You too.
All right. Today our guest is Joan Watson. She's our Thursday guest, and she is the associate editor of Integrated Catholic Life. And so this article we were looking at was Joan the Maid, Joan the Meek.